Good evening everybody and welcome to the studio this evening. Nice to have everybody here. We're going to carry on some more with this dragon. We've got two specific areas to work on. This area in around here needs to go quite a bit lower, as does this one around here. Now this is going to be challenging in there, so I may go about doing that in a different way, which may mean leaving it until I have carved some of the dragon wing down itself. That way then I'll be able to get in a lot easier, but we may also not do it that way. So the next thing is really to decide, okay, I'm going to do it this way. So we'll clamp the wing down here as much as I can, and then we'll work from this side into and around here for the moment at least. So I'll start with a big G clamp. The paper is just there just to stop the G clamp making too big a mark on the wood. Similarly, I've got another one underneath the desk to stop the other part of the G clamp making a mark on the wood. This time the wood being my desk. Right, let's see about getting some more light over here. And possibly potentially moving the camera a little bit, I think. Yeah, you're going to have a problem seeing. So if I put the camera over here, then you might stand a better chance of seeing what's going on. And since I've put the camera there, I'm going to put my cup of tea where the camera was. A nice cup of tea. Now then, the next trick is to probably just shave this down to about the right height. Might have to do it from this angle. Means I'm going to need some stop cuts. So just reducing the height along here so I can get down to the level where I can actually apply the stop cut that I'm after. Which is where this wood is going to get to. So I've got about a quarter of an inch, quarter of an inch to go. And that allows me to do a little bit more work with the gouge. To get down to towards the level that I'm after. Okay, now whilst I can cut them off with the gouge, I'm going to just use the flat chisel for that. Good evening to anybody that's new to the workshop. If you're not sure what you're looking at, apart from the description on the left hand side of the screen, you're looking at a form of carving that's called relief carving. It's, as I would describe it, 2.5 dimensional carving. So you may be familiar with statues, where you can walk around the statue, or something like a vase or something like that, where you can turn it around and you can see it in full 3-dimensional form. Well, relief carving is a bit like taking that object, cutting it in half top to bottom, and then sticking that onto a piece of wood, flat piece of wood. But rather than actually cutting something in half, what we're doing is we're forming the whole part, including the back piece of wood, from a single sheet of, in this case, European lime, or it's also known as basswood. Baby tears, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. You know, when I see that emote, what it makes me think of is somebody yawning. So, not quite sure if you're intending to say you're bored already. I hope you've been having a good bank holiday, baby tears. I'm not sure if there is... now then, I'm trying to remember where you are. I've got a feeling you're in Northern Ireland, aren't you? So I don't know if it's a bank holiday weekend over there. Oh, okay, well that one looks... So what's the other one? Let me just see if I can move this camera a little bit. Okay, that's good. So does that mean you're not at work tomorrow? Or are you one of the unfortunate ones that will be working? Yeah. It's a good job my wife doesn't watch this stream then, isn't it, baby tears? Right. So this is just more of the same, just keep reducing the height. Which once we get the height down quite a bit will allow us to actually form the back plane on which the piece sits, and then once we've got that, then we can go ahead and carve the dragon. So it's kind of a two-piece thing. Remove a lot of waste wood till we can carve the background, and then once we get to the background we can then carve the dragon. Hey Default Guy, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Okay. Yeah, I could do, but meh. So far, I'm not noticing anything on the stream that's coming back at me. But it's been, I understand it's been potentially problematical yesterday. I think I was reasonably lucky yesterday. This afternoon seemed to be okay. As is usual, I have 0 dropped frames, so it's getting to Twitch. It does seem to be Twitch's European playout servers, the ones that you're and me are actually watching, does seem to have a problem. I guess I've been fairly lucky over the past few days. I've not experienced any problems when I've been watching streams. Okay, well let's hope it's going to remain that way for the rest of the evening for you baby tears, or at least until you decide you're bored with watching. Okay. Glasgow servers. Yeah, it's probably the closest servers actually. I think there's some cables across the pond there into Scotland, into Oban. I don't actually know where I'm feeding into. Watching back from. I keep meaning to actually have a look and see where all the ingest servers are, because I've half got a feeling that all the European ones are actually in the same place, and in which case, you know, me picking a different one to stream to is a bit pointless. But then what I might have a play with is actually seeing whether I can connect to some of the American playback servers, so that if I do have a problem in the UK I can always watch a stream from one of the American servers, because they don't seem to have as many problems over there. Oh dear. Yeah, I bet you wish it was true, don't you? It doesn't get rid of the hangover, it just makes you forget that you've got one. Until tomorrow morning. Plenty of sugary fizzy drinks is one of the best hangover cures. And I used to go out. I used to drink lemonade because since I get migraines, hangovers don't have much of an appeal, if you see what I mean. So it was always weird because lemonade is actually, I think it still is, more expensive than beer, which is a weird thing. Fuzzy drinks mixed with vodka, you mean? Is that from the hair of the dog that makes them fuzzy baby tears? But yes, actually, mixers like that do help reduce the dehydration. Yeah, it's better to have a fizzy drink mixed with vodka without the vodka, but I don't know, when I go out, and when I go out, if you're having things like vodka, it's kind of like, well, you can't really taste vodka unless I know some people can if they have it neat, but as soon as you put it with mixers, you can't taste it. So it's not like people generally like the taste of vodka, which is why they have the mixers, of course. And then it's kind of like, so the only point of drinking them is actually to get drunk, which means that, why do you actually want to get drunk? Well, it could mean that you're going to do something that you don't want to remember the next day, I suppose. Or it could mean that you think you are too inhibited to have a good time. But equally, or clearly, you can't be if the vodka or getting drunk makes you have a good time. So it kind of feels like the waste of a loan of vodka to me. Yeah, it's weird. I used to drink pints of lemonade, and okay, it's a long time since I've done it. But what would it be? It would be something like, well, I mean, even now, I'm trying to think the last one I got. The pint of beer was something like about £2.50, and it was about £3 for a pint of lemonade. It was really ridiculous. And they're making it from concentrate, and it's the same gas that's driving it as is driving the beer, and it takes up less storage space, and it's water out the tap. Well, okay, I know they filter it and what have you, but somewhat of a rip-off, really. Want to bet? It's okay. The alcohol is a depressant. Okay, so all it's depressing, if you think you're more fun drunk, is your embarrassment, really. Because I guess if you don't have fun when you're not, you're kind of embarrassed to have fun. As you get older though, you kind of don't care anymore. You just go ahead anyway. Anyway, once you're drunk and you sort of you say you've had more fun, but how do you remember if you've drunk? I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm just trying to make you know, to some extent, it's pointless getting drunk. You might as well, okay, enjoy the drink because it tastes nice and have fun anyway. It's cheaper as well. Most of the time it's only people just get embarrassed about doing what they want to do, and the drink just becomes an excuse for it. But a lot of time people don't actually remember afterwards, and it's kind of like, that was a bit of a waste of time, wasn't it, really? If you can't remember having fun but you think you did, it's almost the same as not bothering and knowing whether you did or not. Anyway, entirely up to yourself, of course. What or how you do things, or I just have perhaps a weird way of looking at some of these things. Yes, the old joke. But what on earth the car firm's got to do with it on Tuesday? I mean, your car's forever breaking down or something, baby tears? In which case it's probably a good idea. And I didn't say you were alcoholic. Of course, you seem to be implying that you are. Yep, that's true. No need to go overboard. I've been out with friends before now where, you know, the next morning they're going, what did I do? I can't remember a thing about it. And it then becomes a case of, well, what was the point in you going? You know, if you can't remember it, you can't remember whether you had fun or what you did or where you went, then, you know, you could have stayed at home and had exactly the same experience. Hey, another night of weird subjects whilst I carve big chunks out of wood. Dear. Well, I have repaired cars from there before now, so we could change it, I suppose. Then play Car Mechanic Simulator maybe. Anyway, that's why you come to the stream, isn't it? For daft views and silly things like that. It must be. It can't be for my sparkling personality. That's for sure. Now we are increasingly going to have a problem in this area here, and that is because I can't actually get the chisels in. So we will be... This is about as deep as I can get the chisels, just because of the angles. So we are going to need to probably leave a lot of the cleaning out of this area to take it down to the final level until we've done some carving on the wings themselves. And we've got some clearance space. Because as I get there, the chisel is now catching on the side of the wing here. Once I've carved that down a little bit, and it will go down a bit, don't know how far yet, we should have a better chance of getting in. I was free, said the other day. It might have been this afternoon. You know, these NASA robot hands. There's nothing behind them. There's nothing up my sleeve, including my arm. I was just thinking maybe I ought to do that one of these days. You know, put a green sleeve on and chroma key and go, there's nothing up my sleeve, including my arms. It's a long time since I did any magic tricks. It was a subject that fascinated me as a fairly old child as well, but I never was particularly good at doing them. I don't know if we're going to get a visit from Junior again tonight. He already came and visited this afternoon, so he may well decide he's had his daily visits. He's sort of forgiven me from last night. At least he sat on my knee this morning for about 30 minutes before he decided to move on somewhere else. I don't think he's holding any grudges from yesterday. Ooh, that's what I meant to do last night. I must remember to do that tonight. Highlight that particular bit of the video where I tried to smash this overhead lamp. Switch to the gouge. Have a good evening, baby tears. Don't get too drunk. But otherwise, enjoy yourself. See you later. Yeah, you see, Eddie, not only are we streamers, we're drunk counsellors as well. Oh dear. Yeah, so am I. I don't mind the odd beer, but I'm not that particularly bothered about it these days. I would just as often have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Nothing particularly against them at all. Sometimes I will just have a drink just because it's a nice taste, but don't often don't often go down to the pub anyway. I'd generally get a few cans or something from the supermarket, and then the last I'll get a four pack or something, and it'll last me about a month. Lil Velpain, good evening. Welcome to the studio. Nice to see you. I don't believe I've seen you in the studio before. Thank you very much for that. Sorry. I'm laughing at the reference to cool. I do pyrography as well, and quite a few people come in and say cool, and my usual response is no, it's rather hot actually, or something along those lines. Do you do any form of art, Lil Velpain, or a streamer yourself? Thank you very much for that, 84 guy. I think what you do is cool as well, to be honest. That's I'm amazed at some of the stuff that you've done. Which, in case anybody's wondering, 84 guy makes chainmail based jewellery. or anything chainmail based, I guess. Things like dice bags and keychains and necklaces. Some absolutely amazing work. Highly recommend you check him out. This is a bit where I make a mess on the floor. Indeed I will. I'm being a little bit quiet about that because the house is rather quiet at the moment, Eddie. And voices carry quite a long way. I don't think I will have any thing negative at all to say about that, though. Right, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna get the big chisel out. Methinks this big chisel needs a bit of a sharpen, so I shall do that. Can't quite work out why it feels so blunt, and by blunt I mean just very slightly not quite sharp. No, shouldn't be an issue. It's usually me that answers the door anyway, Eddie. She already knows I'm expecting something anyway, so but not this, so it won't be too bad even if she does answer the door. Right, if anybody wonders, I said I was going to sharpen this. I'm not using a sharpening stone. This is just a leather strop with a polishing compound on it. The blade doesn't actually need sharpening as in a stone. It's more really just a case of polishing what's already a very fine edge, which then restores the sharp edge of the chisel. And I turn it over and draw it back because when you polish or even sharpen with a stone, something like a chisel, sharpening that edge, it tends to hook over. You create like a burr on the edge, and if you don't straighten that out, then what happens, of course, is it tucks further under as you drive it into the wood, and it acts like a very blunt surface. the fact that it's there, I don't know if you can see. There's when I put this down and drew it back, it actually created a line, which was the burr sticking into the strop when I pulled backwards. So it's it's quite a what's the word I'm looking for? Quite a big burr really that you create sometimes. That's better. And now it gets really smooth, does that wood. Now at this stage I'm using this chisel this way up, which is the correct way to cut with a chisel. But later on, once we get really close to the surface level I will turn it over this way, because I'll be shaving very small areas off like that. That's going to get deeper really quickly there. And what I need then is I'm using the flat back of the chisel to keep the thing level all the way across, or at least attempt to keep it level all the way across. Hopefully you should see that now looking a heck of a lot, this area here at least looking a lot more smoother than it has in the past. I'm actually at this point in time using this more like a knife than I am like a chisel. You see me sliding it to one side. So I'm using a slicing action rather than a shaving action. And just makes it a bit easier to get a smooth, fine cut than it would do if I was to just try pushing the chisel directly. I could also use a skew chisel, which really is a chisel like this, but the blade is slanted, and that would work just as well. This one being a big blade, however, means that generally speaking I get quite a smooth cut across the whole plane rather than it going up and down, as you would do if you start using smaller chisels or smaller width chisels. Of course, the one thing that even big chisels don't stop you doing you get a nice smooth surface, but they don't guarantee that it's flat. Which of course it wasn't here. And I keep, you won't see it, but what I'm keeping doing here is referring to a line that I've drawn down the side of the bud, which is the level I want to be at for the background. It's an arbitrary sort of height, but it's the same height all the way around. If there's anybody new to the studio on stream tonight, good evening, welcome. If you wish to say anything in chat, please do so. I know it's a little bit quiet at the moment, but equally, if you wish to lurk, that's perfectly okay as well. I'm interested in a lot of different art forms, so not only do I get involved in quite a few of them, including pyrography, carving, which you're looking at now, scraperboard, punchcraft. I do some other things like rotary carving, glass engraving, airbrushing, model making, rug making, and that's just the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Don't do all of those on stream, or at least I haven't done most of those on stream yet. Some of them I don't currently have the room to do on stream, or I can't set them up, like the airbrushing. I can't get a camera over to where I do the airbrushing at the moment. But equally, because of that, if you're in the stream and you do undertake any art forms yourself, I'd be certainly pleased to hear about them. Bastian0532, thank you very much for following the studio. That's most kind of you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Snowbear Pro, thank you also for following. That's most kind of you as well. I really do appreciate that. You can always try making me an offer, Adi Fall Guy. That is the difficulty with carving, though, is it can be a time-consuming activity. Which does tend to make them, a relatively, or can make them relatively expensive. But I've never actually priced a piece up, so Bubbles the Monkey, good afternoon or good evening even. Welcome back to the studio this evening. And Erland343, I'm not quite sure, well, I don't understand what you just said, so if you'd actually prefer to rephrase it in a form of English language, which I know you're fully capable of, then we can maybe have a conversation. I trust you've had a good afternoon, Bubbles the Monkey. A good early evening. Having stopped the stream earlier on, I got Collet to plant some plants and then go out and buy fish and chips. So at least I've had some tea. So if you're new to the studio and you've seen the title that we're doing relief carving, and you're wondering what on earth relief carving is, apart from it being what you're looking at, the easiest way I kind of describe it is as 2.5 dimensional. If you think of a 3D sculpture or a 3D object, something like, I don't know, a cup, and you cut the cup in half vertically and then stuck that half onto a piece of wood, that would be a relief, would be effectively what relief carving is. But since we don't actually cut something in half and stick it on, it's actually all formed out of a single piece of wood. If you're familiar with Minecraft, and Minecraft Vanilla even, item frames, it's kind of like relief carving. When you put the item in the frame, you sort of see half of it stuck to the front, and that's sort of what relief carving is like. Oh, Mexican food. I might have preferred that, to be honest. I don't mind fish and chips, but I prefer them at lunchtime rather than evening. Although today's were quite nice. Baking treats for a birthday party. Okay, well, sounds like you enjoyed yourself anyway. I'm not that good at baking. I have done some, but definitely not that good at it. Musica 9. Hopefully I've got that correct. Welcome to the studio. Good evening. Thank you very much for following. That's most kind of you. Happy FS. I'm assuming that's Russian. Unfortunately, I don't understand it. I would prefer if you would use English. Thank you very much. But hi, also to you. Thank you very much for saying hello. And for joining the studio this evening. That's most kind of you. I hope you're enjoying what you're looking at. Do you also undertake any forms of art? As I was mentioning earlier, I'm kind of interested to know what people do. I've come across people that do things like stone carving. Adi there who does chainmail related jewellery. Bubbles the Monkey who does bead art. There's lots of interesting people around on Twitch. Fire Legion, good evening, welcome to the studio. Please keep the English if you wouldn't mind, thank you. I can translate it if I need to do so, but I don't really want to have to do that. Right, I think we'll change chisels for a little while. Find the one that's buried here. If you're not familiar with carving, it's a good habit to get into and not actually, pulling shavings off the wood. If they're still attached, leave them attached and cut them off in some way. That way you've got a lot less chance of accidentally damaging your piece by splitting wood or pulling a chunk off that you didn't actually intend to remove. Now this bit of the wing round here, I think we've got enough space to get in, so we'll be able to take the background area here down. And if it becomes a problem to me in there, I will actually cut the finger off. Happy FS, thank you for following the studio again also. Great to have you around. Thank you very much. I do appreciate everybody that follows. Celovic32 also. Thank you to you for following the studio this evening. It's fantastic to have you all here. How long? Fire Legion. Also, thank you to you as well for following the studio. It is a great thing to have you all around and watching what I'm doing. That's fantastic. Thank you. How long have I been working on this? About a week now, Silovic. So that's about 5-6 streams. So about 12 hours, something like that. There's quite a lot of time spent with this, getting down to the background level. There's a lot of material to remove, and whilst I could use power tools to do it, I can't do that on the stream, so I am actually sort of taking longer than I might do if I was doing this piece off camera, but at least this is it's quite an enjoyable way of doing this. I'm not always wanting to do everything at high speed. I enjoy the actual act of carving, and I enjoy the sound of the wood being cut. So whilst I could do it a little bit faster using power tools, there's also the nice thing of being able to say it's all been handcrafted without the use of any power tools at all. Plus, of course, the other thing is, whilst I'm doing this, and I do from time to time tend to talk, and if I get too involved in the talking, I do tend to stop carving. So there's been a few times during the week when that's happened. So I couldn't exactly say how long I spent doing it in total. Now, as I've mentioned before, this area of wood here, it's a really thin piece of wood, and basswood, although it's great for carving, it doesn't have a fantastic amount of strength when it's bent, and it would be quite easy to snap this off. Now I'm trying not for that not to happen. But this is a dragon, and yeah, that's the dragon's end of finger, if you like. Now, if I do end up snapping off the wood, it won't be a fantastic issue. It would be nice not to, but if I do, then all I do is just carve it without that finger on the end. Dragons are a matter of interpretation anyway, how you want to do them. So if that happens, it's a way of dealing with the mistake of it breaking off, is to work around it. And quite often when you're carving, lots of compromises like that happen. Sky Hobbit, thank you very much for following the studio this evening. That is most fantastic, and I'm very grateful to you. Thank you very much. Z Big New Michaelak. I hope I at least had a good attempt at pronouncing that. Welcome to the studio, and thank you for following. Metal Dash, also thank you for following. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for joining the studio. Yes, lots of people this evening. Welcome to you all. Thank you for dropping by and taking a look, and I hope you're all enjoying me turning this block of wood into premium wood chips. You know, they're also potentially available for sale if somebody would like to make an offer. That's a little bit of a joke from last night, I think it was. If any of the people watching and any of the new people that have just followed the studio, if you do any art form yourself, or indeed you stream for yourself, and you feel like letting us know, please do so. I am interested in all sorts of arts, and if you do stream, then I would certainly be interested in taking a look at what you do. We have quite a few talented people on the stream this evening already. We've got Eddie Fall Guy, who makes chainmail related items like jewellery, dice bags, necklaces. Bubbles the Monkey, who makes bead art and bead related images, just having finished an R2-D2 if I recall correctly. I'm not sure who else we might have on stream, but feel free to let us know if you are around. There's quite a lot of interesting crafts going on now, and art as well, because of course the two are closely related on Twitch. It's got to the point now where I think there's only one or two, or possibly only one, non-creative stream that I watch these days. There's always something interesting going on in creative. Whether it's people like TK Norway with his fantastic photorealistic art, Poke Ranger with his glass blowing, and his girlfriend as well. Unfortunately I can't remember her Twitch name. We've got as I said, chainmail. We've got carvers out there, sculptors out there. Actually, they think there is one other person doing carving as well, but I can't recall who. Pyrographers. I can't remember. There's so many interesting things going on. Do that with a big chisel. Using the big chisel here because what it enables me to do a lot more easily than the smaller chisel is to keep a flat or at least a flatter level. As I'm getting closer to the line I want to get to, I don't want to end up with any areas dug in that I can't smooth out, and the big chisel helps that because of the width of it. Eddie Von King, thank you very much for following the studio. That is most fantastic of you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate everybody following. Foxter216, thank you also for following the studio. That's absolutely fantastic. I can tell this evening, it's getting to the stage now this evening where I won't be interrupting the carving by talking. I'll be interrupting the carving by welcoming everybody who is being so kind as to follow us. It's amazing of you all. Thank you very much indeed. You might notice I'm actually using this chisel a bit like a knife, which is true because it's if I slice rather than shave rather than push, it's a little bit easier to cut fine slivers of wood off, and also to feel where the high spots are. I could use a skew chisel to do it, which is the same sort of idea, except it's cut at an angle and then you can push it, and in pushing it you're using a slicing action anyway. But the only skew chisel I've got is actually smaller than this, and the large size is what's helping me at the moment. As I said before, I cut off the slivers, I don't pull them off. If they don't want to come off of their own accord, then they're not fully cut. And if you do pull them off, you can end up pulling off bits of wood that you didn't actually intend to come off. Which of course, at some stages of the carving, that would be potentially disastrous for the piece that you're trying to produce. Maybe at this stage I'm at, it wouldn't be too bad, but it's kind of like developing a muscle memory or an automatic reaction. If you always follow the same action, which is to cut the slivers off, then you won't find yourself accidentally pulling one at the wrong time. So it's kind of like developing good habits. This side is coming along quite nicely. I'm not fantastically 100% bothered about it being dead flat, or even whether it slopes up or not, which it currently does. I'm going to try and bring that down a bit, but it's really a lot more about, because I want a smoothish texture in the background for this particular piece. The kind of the idea of where the dragon is here, it's perched on the spire of a rock, and it's sky behind it, and of course the sky, unless you have clouds, but sky is generally a very smooth texture, so that's one reason for me wanting to try and get a smooth background. But the other one, of course, is a lot of the time the background isn't the interesting part of the piece. It's there just to support the piece that you're working on. And if you make it too textured, then like this is around here, for example, then at times that can become more of a focus than the actual thing that you want it to be, and it's distracting. So sometimes a textured background works quite nice. If I was doing this, for example, say he was flying, this was a flying dragon, he was flying over a canopy of trees, a forest, then that sort of texture in the background would probably be quite appropriate. But there again, it's kind of down to the carver or the artist, how they want to portray whatever it is that they're doing. Dividan 55. The answer is both, actually. The chisel is really sharp. The sharper the chisels, the better. Actually, I'll actually put a caveat on that within reason. Marius TV, thank you very much for following the studio. That is very kind of you. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you. Grab and Huffer too. You too. Thank you very much for following the studio. It is most kind of you. Dividend, yes, the chisels. There's within the capabilities of the chisel, the sharper the better. It makes carving a lot easier to have a sharp chisel. You use less force. There's less risk. The wood cuts a lot easier no matter what the wood is. But equally well, this is basswood or European lime wood. It is a relatively soft wood to carve, and it's a reasonably consistent wood across its grain as well to carve, which also makes it really nice for carving. But although it's soft, it takes a really nice clean sharp edge if you want it to have a sharp edge. Whilst I couldn't cut myself on this, it is a 90-degree bend. It's a real clean sharp edge is that. So it's really a combination of both, a really sharp chisel and a reasonably soft wood. That in itself, Metal Dash, is art. Oh, it's being creative. It depends on how you define art, but it's being creative. And if art is someone being creative or creating something, out of something else, then that I would define as being art. I certainly would define it as being creative. I have designed electronic circuits. I've put together bits and pieces, soldered things together to create something, to do something. That's all creative. It's part of the creative process. So don't necessarily dismiss it as not art. It's just a different form of art. Sky Hobbit, how old am I? I am over 50, so I'm an old person. I remember seeing the first moon landing on when it live, shall we say, at something o'clock in the morning in the UK. Tio Dice Gaming, no, actually they don't at all. The only reason they get tired because I'm applying quite a lot of micro control with the muscles, so my muscles get tired, if you like, and you can get a muscle ache from that. But really, the answer to your question really is no, they don't. If you're getting sore, it either means, it basically means you're not holding your tools correctly. Because if, for example, I hold a tool and I'm not holding it right, and it starts rubbing and I create a blister, then that's basically you've not been holding the tool firm enough. It's been allowed to move. So in almost all cases, the other cause of making sort of your hands sore, for example, is applying a lot of force. Well, if you need to apply a lot of force, again, either you're cutting too much off, trying to cut too much off at the same time, or potentially you're trying to use your hand as something it shouldn't be, which is like a hammer. You quite often, I have seen people, they'll take a chisel and they'll start doing that with the hand, and that'll make your hand sore. If you need to use some form of power to drive a chisel, for example, use a mallet. These tools in any case, or this handle in any case, is not suitable for being driven. You can drive it with a mallet, but it's not suitable for being driven with a mallet. It will actually eventually split if I did that. But this handle is meant to be used as a hand tool. So no, actually my hands are nice and soft, and I actually like them that way. It means I can feel things, because if your hands were hardened, you don't necessarily feel. I mean, I can feel this, and I can feel all the bumps that are in there, the slight imperfections that you can't, even I can't even see, to be honest. But there's an edge somewhere around there that I can feel. I can't actually see it. Don Daniel 85, thank you very much for following the studio. That is most kind of you. I appreciate you doing so. That's great. Thank you. And I do a lot of other things as well. Holy Cakes, also to you. Thank you very much for following the studio this evening. It is a really busy evening. Thank you all for following. I do other activities as well, like Punchcraft, for example, where I'm using thread like this. And if I got hardened and rough hands, it would drive me potty, because of course the threads would be catching. So I do tend to try and keep my hands not work hardened. But also, this is a hobby, not a profession. So I'm not doing this 24 hours a day. But like most tools, it's about getting the tools to do the job for you, not you do the job for the tool. That's no problem. Anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask. The only daft questions are the ones you ask already knowing the answer. All other questions are okay. Now, there are some questions I may decline to answer, but that's a different thing altogether. Okay, I've got a high spot here, which isn't surprising given that there's a knot here, and the knot, even though it's a nice soft carving wood, the knot is still quite a bit harder than this whiter wood, and it carves slightly differently. So I've got a slight high spot there, and then we've got a high spot in the corner here, but I'll have to move the clamp to get into there. So what I'm just going to do is do some more work around here to level this high spot out, because we're at almost, well, we are at the level that I want this background to be at this side here, and I'd like to level it out a little bit more around here. And try and remove some of this slope that I've got going into this bit of the wing and body. I won't be able to do it all because I can't get it right into this corner here. The angles mean that I just can't get a chisel round there successfully. And what I will either end up doing is waiting until I've carved the body and the wing down somewhat. Then I'll have more clearance to take this down to the background. Or what I may actually do is, this is kind of like a finger joint of the dragon. So I don't know if you can see the pencil marks, but you've got like an arm to the hand, and then you've got the fingers going out. Now, given the fact that I haven't put a finger on this end here, I could probably lose a finger off this end here as well. So it's really just this little tiny bit on the end that's curved around. I think what I might do actually is lose that. Then we've got we match the other side really in that respect. So I think yes, we'll probably lose that. Holy Cakes, is it hard or difficult to carve? I'm afraid that's another answer, which is yes. The difficulty of carving is kind of a multi-part answer really. Certain things make it harder to carve, so using some different woods make it harder to carve. Using the wrong tools make it harder to carve. Using blunt tools make it harder to carve. Carving itself, as in just taking a chisel and just getting a bit of wood off like that, is easy. It's not a difficult thing to do. It's really just dig the chisel in a little bit and push. So in itself, you know, the action of carving is easy. What where the skill comes from is learning to I'll say listen to the wood or feel the wood as you're carving. It tells you a lot about how to carve the wood, because there are certain directions in which the wood does not like to be carved, and if you can recognize that, you can work around it and get better results. There are certain things that make it harder to carve. For example, small spaces like this are quite difficult. Smidefix, thank you for following the studio. Thank you. You are. It's amazing. Thank you very much for following. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you. Where was it? Oh yes, you know, trying to carve things with small areas like this, they're quite difficult to get into, and to get a clean base on, and sort of that sort of makes it more difficult. So really, what you're kind of asking is, as a beginner, is it easy to carve? And the answer really is yes, it is easy to carve. Get a soft wood, basswood, European lime wood, same thing, different name. Get a decent set of tools, and you don't need many to start with. A flat chisel like this, for example, and just a small gouge, which is a U-shaped tool. Those two are enough to start carving with, and start with something simple. It may be something just like a leaf, which is, you know, just a single simple shape. There's no fancy, you know, awkward angles to get around. You can get the whole thing on a small piece of wood. And you know, yes, you have to learn, and there's quite a bit to learn, and you'll learn, you know, the grain of the wood, how to feel the grain of the wood, which way it's going, etc. But you stand a very good chance of having a reasonable piece at the end of it. And then progress up from there. You get to slightly more complicated pieces. So something which is a bit more, well, quite a bit more complicated, but more complicated, for example, like a rose. This is really shallow carved because this wood was quite hard to do. But yeah, it's again a similar thing. Some of the skill learned is then in how to represent the thing so that it looks like the object you're intending it to be, like a rose, with with all the right levels in. But you know, once you've got the basic skills down, it's then really just practice. And you know, practice involves, you know, starting to do things like this, understanding, you know, as a beginner, for example, you might be taught to always go down to the background level. Well, in here I can't do that. I can't get the chisels in, but I do know that I'm going to carve some of this down. But also, equally, I could go, you know what, I can't get in there. Even when I carve some of the wing down, I'm still not going to be able to get in there. So what am I going to do? Am I going to just, you know, try and botch it, try and get in there with some really silly tools, or damage everything around it? Or what I could do is, this dragon is sat on a peak of a rock, and the intended edge of the peak of the rock is here. But in actual fact, there's no reason why I can't say, well, there's a bit more down there. And therefore that's going to stand proud of the background. And it actually makes no difference to the piece, really. And when I come to get down to that bit, I'll decide if I want to do that. And you know, that's part of the artistic interpretation of what you're doing, perhaps. So you know, it's those sorts of things that you learn as you go on, and you start to learn some of the rules that you learnt as a beginner actually are guidelines and things like that. So, but yes, basically it's easy. It takes practice to do well, I think, is the best way of describing it. Art for Life. Spell everything the right way around, please. There's absolutely not a lot of point in you trying to spell it backwards, because what's going to happen is I'm not going to read it, and I suspect other people may or may not. So if you say it the right way around, I will read it, and I'll maybe be able to answer whatever it is that you're saying. To be honest, it's probably easier to type the right way around, unless you've been doing it for years, and then perhaps you've got the skill to do that. Right, what was I doing? What did I get this chisel? Oh, I was going to take this down. I was going to remove the end of the finger here. So like I was saying earlier to the question about sore hands, I could just go in here, bang that down, and hope I don't split this piece of wood off. And you know, I might get sore hands from doing that. Equally well, I can just shave, and I'd normally use two hands, but I'm just keeping out the camera for the moment. Just shave it down in small bits like that, letting the tool do the work, and I won't actually then get sore hands from doing it. I'll just use two hands now because I prefer to stabilise chisels. So excuse me being in the way, but I will move my hand shortly. Yes, it also takes a few moments longer to do. I've got less, as I say, this wood is soft. If I wasn't careful, actually I could crack this whole end of the finger off anyway, and that would well, it'd solve the problem, but it wouldn't be what I intend it to do. You always try and make the wood do what you want it to do. Don't let the wood dictate to you what you're going to do. It's kind of a saying, if you like, but it's sort of true, you know. You know, whilst the wood, for example, says to me, you know, you can't cut me in this direction because of the grain, I'll go, okay, but I will cut you in this other direction. So the wood is informing me, it's not dictating what I actually do. And equally well, you know, I would like this finger end here to be a lot thinner in time. Now I know the wood at this stage, the wood won't particularly support that, because just the slightest, if I made this a lot thinner, the slightest knock could crack it off altogether. So I'm leaving it thicker than I will than I want at this stage, but when I get to the final carving, then I can shave it down as much as I want, because I'm in less danger of accidentally knocking it while I'm doing something else. Equally well, I may just decide actually I'll leave it that thick anyway, because this is a piece that, you know, has to live in a house, and you know, it'll get picked up, and if somebody picks it up wrong, they could break it off, and you know, that might upset them thinking they've broken a carving. Whereas if I leave it thick, it might support being picked up a little bit. Okay, the vertical cuts are stop cuts. They're there to stop the wood, well, stop the chisel actually, and stop the wood going splitting where you don't want it to split, because it can only split as far as the cut. It can't go past it because it's kind of cut off. So there, you know, as a beginner, if you like, that's one of the first things that you learn about is stop cuts. They're a vital part of learning, especially when you do learn at start, because you're not sure about how much force to use, and so it's very easy to drive a chisel past where you want it to go. As you develop more skill, then you can modulate the amount of force that you use, and you can feel where the chisel is, and just generally you've got a better level of control over it. So whilst the stop cut is still vitally important in most things, again, it's like it becomes a guideline. Like, I've not put a stop cut in there, but I can feel when I reach where it is or where it should be, and I'm able to stop the chisel. So I'm creating now lots of shavings which stop where I want the stop cut to be, but they're still attached. So what I'm doing then afterwards is I put the stop cut down, and I can then remove the shavings. Now that doing it this way has an advantage once you've got the skill to do it, because if I put a stop cut in, let's put one in there. Now you might not be able to see it, but there is now a cut into this surface of this material here. Depending on how hard I've pushed it, is how thick and visible that cut is. Now that's kind of looks untidy in a finished piece. So if you're able to carve up to where the stop cut should be, like that for example, I know where it should be, and then I cut the pieces off. What ends up happening then is I don't leave that deep cut, and it looks nice and clean. But that's a skill that you need to develop, to understand when you can do that. There are times when you can't do that, even if you want it to. It's better to put the stop cut in. So I'm working around the back of this piece of rock here, and you can't actually easily see that, but we shouldn't be here for long. I'm just being a little bit careful because the grain starts to tilt down, and what that will do is it'll tend to drag the chisel down into the wood. And I don't want it to do that, because I'm trying to create a flat surface, and if it drags it down into the wood, I'm going to get a divot basically, or a dip, which I don't want there. I'm right at the limit of what I can do with this chisel. The ideal angle to use this chisel at is with this bevel at the front here, flat on the piece of wood, so at that angle there. That's where I get the best cutting action, so it's exactly level, and I can take shavings off this piece of wood here, very fine ones, which you might or may not be able to see, but that's because I've got exactly the right angle of this. To create that flat surface. Now the problem is, as I come in here, this piece of wood is limiting the angle that I can come down at. So I am just at that ideal angle here at the moment in this corner, but if I actually want it to take this down any further, and ideally I want it to go down a little bit more, I can't do that into that corner, at least not with this chisel. I don't have a suitable one, but it would need to be a bit like the gouges are. If I show you a gouge, there's like a spoon. It's like you can see it comes down and bends up, whereas this chisel is flat. So if I had a chisel which has that spoon shaped, it's still a flat chisel but had a spoon bend in it, then I'd be able to get in a little easier to do that. And those sorts of chisels are available, I just don't have them. Fortunately, these chisels they're not expensive, but they're not cheap either. This chisel here, which is about 3 years old now, was 11.5 UK pounds. That's probably in the region of about $15 just for that one chisel. And I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12 chisels, I think. So they, and there are literally hundreds available of different shapes and sizes that all do similar and different jobs. I've got about 3 different. This is a gouge. Sorry, this is a gouge. This is a gouge also. They have a different profile. So they whilst they do the same sort of job, they work slightly differently. This one is quite good for taking out these big chunks of wood. This one is a lot better for being under a lot more control and creating a flatter background profile. So quite often you start with something like this, then work down to something like this, and then go down to using a super flat wide chisel like this. Ah dear. There is indeed quite a bit of traffic. Sorry, Bubbles, I'm explaining and not watching chat. I don't actually know. I did wonder if I'd missed a raid, but I don't think anybody said anything if it was. But I am, I am pleased and thank everybody for that has followed this evening. That's absolutely amazing. I don't know, maybe it's got something to do with it being a bank holiday or something like that. There's more people around, perhaps. That's if you're in the UK, of course. And I hope nobody's having any problems with the stream this evening, because it looks like my feedback screen from my own broadcast has died. So Twitch won't even give me my own broadcast back this evening. So I hope everybody else is not having the same problem. So at this stage I can see what I'm sending. I can't see what you're receiving. Let's see if I can deal with this high spot here, which is where there was a branch coming out, which gets called a knot. A knot is actually where a branch actually came out of the piece of wood, which is generally speaking the trunk, and that's where the branch came out, and it's where all the rings from the main trunk and the branch sort of merge together. The quality of the wood where the knot is it changes in a way. It becomes a little bit sort of plasticky almost, in that you get an extremely smooth, shiny cut, and it's a little bit like, I don't know, smoothing off clay or something like that almost, in that the sort of feel it gets when you're cutting it with a chisel. Now I'm just going to turn over this because I can then use the tool flat to just try and get rid of some of the more high spots. The fact that I'm using it more or less flat means it's harder for me to tip it up or down, so I'm cutting at a consistent or trying to cut at a consistent height all the way across. It's really hard to do actually with knots. I was hoping I could do it, but it's I shall have to revert to using it this way. Now this is where I'm using a lot of, well, relatively speaking, quite a lot of force. In fact, what I'm going to do is sharpen this blade, because that's the other possibility of me needing to use a lot more force, is the blade is actually blunt. It doesn't feel it, but it actually won't do any harm to sharpen it. As I mentioned earlier, actually, I'm sharpening it. It's a bit of an odd word. I'm kind of polishing it more than sharpening it. And polishing it restores the very fine edge, which is the sharp bit right on the tip. Now, in principle, a lot of the time, providing these tools are polished in this way, it's, unless you've done some really bad things to your tools, they almost never need sharpening, or these don't. So it's really just a case of dragging it backwards at the right angle for the bevel. So I'm making sure I've got that correct angle, and then just dragging it back. It's easy on the flat tools. It gets a bit harder on the gouges, because you have to rotate it while you do that, but that's just practice. Now, having polished that edge by rubbing it like that, what I've done is create a lip. So what I now need to do is turn it over and drag it backwards, and that straightens out that lip and makes it a sharp edge. Okay, let's see what effect that had. Yep, that's a lot sharper. I'm not needing to use as much force now. So we've got some high spot around there and a high spot here. I'm being a little bit pinicky at this stage really, because I could leave this, for example, until after I've done most of the dragon carving, but it's one of those things that sometimes you don't feel like coming back to, and so it never gets done, because once the piece is sort of carved, you kind of feel like you've finished, and then to have to come back and smooth out the background is one of those sort of I'll do it sometime, and of course sometime is never time, and then you kind of haven't really done the best that you could have done. You can tell That's speaking from experience. And I'm quite good at putting off until tomorrow what I could have done today. Okay, smoothing off like that, I won't say guarantees it being flat, but it does a very good job of being flat. It doesn't actually guarantee being level. it just goes towards guaranteeing that it's smooth. And I can actually feel that this wood actually is still going upwards a little bit there. The Brilliant Bacon, good evening. Sorry, I possibly missed you for a little while. Good evening. Welcome back to the studio. Nice to see you again. And bacon is brilliant. Don't often have it, but when it is, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Not so challenging in any wood, basically. Because locally they changed the characteristics of the wood. The grain, which may have been going in a particular direction, will suddenly go in all sorts of weird directions around knots. I almost said black hole then, so I don't know quite what physics came into it in astronomy, but probably because they say all sorts of weird things happen around black holes. Yeah, so unfortunately I don't think you're seeing any different at all, but it does now feel different to me. I don't actually know about that one. I never have done before the Brilliant Bacon. I mean, it is an interesting idea. I mean, that a lot of carvers do that, and I may well do so. I just never thought about doing it before. It's like when the rose. I'm not sure you've seen the rose. The stream suggested painting it, so I tried, and therefore we have a painted rose, something I'd never done before. And yes, so I may well do that here. The interesting thing about this, though, is this dragon is representative of one from a book, and the dragon is white. So what I may do if we apply pyrographic shading, which is what the Brilliant Bacon is talking about there, I may do that to the rock that he stood on, and possibly if we get any shading off the wings, might do something, for example, down the body, because I'm not going to make these wings thin enough that they're translucent, for example. So we may sort of mimic that effect a little bit by colouring the body. But that's an interesting idea. I shall bear it in mind, the brilliant bacon. Yes, it could well do. It could also overdo it a little bit. I think I will have to be careful, but yes. Lizard cell, yes you could. It would be really fiddly to set up. But yes, you could use a laser to do it. To be honest, I use my fingers. They're not as accurate. But I can sort of feel the main things. What I'm really after is something that is sort of flat to the eye almost. I mean, I can feel it rising up here into this area, but this, you know, most of this area now is reasonably flat, or it's flat enough for me to be happy with. This corner isn't, but I haven't been trying to do that one just yet. So I'm not after laser precision. If I was, I probably should have taken a router to it in the first place. Yes, you're right. They do brilliant bacon. They do have shadows. The image that's in the bottom left of the screen, which is kind of the reference image or the main reference image I'm using for this dragon. The sun is coming from here. And so the whole of this sort of top wing area here is in shade from the head and the body, and this wing is really, as you can see, is sort of translucent. So I think you see the shadow there as well. So it definitely is a reasonable idea. Mind you, there was somebody who was potentially interested in purchasing this, so they might not actually want me to do that. Pierbo, thank you very much for following the studio. That is most fantastic of you. That's great. A cybernetic frog. Thank you very much for following. That also is really nice of you. Thank you. Gee, sunning me up. Oh, I'm afraid I'm not sure quite how to pronounce that. Sunning me up. However, thank you very much for following. That is really good of you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Theodice, most of my practice has been relief carving like this, but I would like to be able to do three-dimensional carving, and I have started to practice. So I've got 2 or 3 pieces I can show you. I mean, for example, I've got this, which was done out of a piece of firewood. Actually, this though was done with rotary tools, some fairly big rotary tools. So and it's the first time I'd ever used the rotary tools. It's the first time I'd ever used a piece of firewood, and it's the first 3D carving I've ever done. So that's not actually too bad, I don't think. Yeah, not great, but not too bad. So you know, I sort of am practicing, but that, as I say, was done with rotary tools. I've just started, you know, fleshing out a cat basically in 3D, mainly using knives to do this, sort of, you might say, whittling style rather than using the chisels. But that was just to try using knives, and I think I probably will revert to using chisels, as it's a bit easier to use a chisel sometimes than the knife. But also I started figure carving is the hardest altogether, so I started just trying figure carving. So this is still a rough block, but we're getting there. So yeah, to answer your question, therefore, is the moment most of my experience is with relief carving. Yep, you're right, Bubbles. And there you've now seen the. I may do more to the fish. I probably won't, but I may do more to the fish. I'm more likely to actually start a new one. That the piece of wood that came out of, when I saw it, I don't know. It just felt like there should be a fish in there, which is kind of why I tried it. Okay. Right, switch chisels now, because the big one won't actually get into this space. And the difficulty, I say, with small chisels is you're trying to. It's very easy to come off the level place, and you can end up digging into the wood very easily, and therefore you don't get the smooth surface that you're after. That's why the bigger chisels are better. It's a lot harder to tip them. So I just want to be a little bit careful. I don't want to. I mean, it's not a fantastic problem. Yeah, it's part of it is me practicing being able to do this and to create smooth backgrounds. So I'm being a little bit more, if you like, pernickety than I would be, or a little bit more attention to detail than I might be, because it's I'm trying my best to be able to do it, and you know, like anything else, as you practice you get better at it. So the next time I do a background, I'll be a little bit better at doing it, and it'll be less of a purposeful action to try and keep it flat. It'll be more of an automatic reaction, and of course I'll get faster. Won't necessarily get really fast at carving. There is kind of a, I'm guessing there's kind of a limit to it, if only because of safety. You don't really want to have chisels flying around that much. I mean, some of what I am doing, more experienced carvers I know can do faster. You know, there's quite a few of them, for example, would carve the background and the piece at the same time, which I can't I can't do at this moment in time. And I do find carving the background a lot easier to do as a separate activity. It's easier to see what you want to carve and where you're going to, you know, what depth you've got available when you do the background first. Indeed, practice does make ultimately, I suppose, perfect. Takes a lot of practice to get there, though. Right, that now means I can go back to the big chisel. I know this whole area in here is higher, so again, not fantastically bothered about it. I have a limitation with where I can get the chisel in, so we will kind of deal with it more later. Yeah, that's quite nice. A little bit of a low spot just in there, but there's also a little tiny ridge which will annoy me, so I'm just going to feather it in. I could actually get a piece of sandpaper and do the same thing, but I don't know, there's something sort of I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for, something a bit more satisfying about actually being able to do it with the chisel. HC Cowbell, good afternoon, or good evening even. Welcome to the studio this evening. Thank you for dropping in. Woodwork is really cool. Given that it's 24 degrees here in the studio, I might disagree with you a little bit. It's really warm. But I know what you mean, and thank you very much for that comment. Right, I shall switch to the thinner blade again to do a bit more just in this area here. Now this is, I've got a fairly thick area of wood here, and I can shave a little bit, but as I get close to this upright area, if I continue to try and push underneath there and shave it away, I stand the danger of cracking this whole area off. And that's where, again, as I keep mentioning, the stop cut comes in, because if I put that stop cut in there, then it will stop it cracking off. Waterfeetson, thank you very much for following the studio this evening. That is most kind of you. Thank you very much. Deck the Best, thank you also for following the studio this evening. That also is most kind of you. I'm very grateful for both of you. Thank you. Sorry about knocking the camera just then. And now, because I had that stop cut, I was able to cut that without any danger of it forcing this area here to break off. The basswood is really nice. It's a softish wood to carve, but it is also therefore at risk of thin pieces actually being broken off as well. So it's a double-edged sword in a way. You can have one, you know, they're easy to carve, but then it does mean it's easy to break as well. Whereas harder woods obviously would be the complete opposite. They're easy, hard to carve, but also they don't break very easily. If for example I wanted to do this dragon with actually the wings completely freestanding, so you could actually see completely underneath them, for example, I probably wouldn't pick basswood to do it in. The reason being that it would be so easy to just crack them off just with a light pressure here, and it'll break across this area here. That would be disappointing, shall we say, if that happened. So I'm more likely, you know, if I wanted to do that sort of carving, I'd be wanting to pick a harder wood to do it with, or I'd actually be making the wings just a lot more thicker than, you know, they wouldn't be translucent like they are in the reference image. That and that'd take a lot more care, of course, if I was moving it or something. Of course, when I first drew this dragon out, and I could still do it now, of course, I could always not have put that in, this little peak thing here. If I'd have thought about it, I might not have done so, but there again, ultimately, I could make the whole thing so bland it wouldn't be particularly interesting when it was carved anyway, so... doing these sorts of things can be challenging, but that's also what helps you learn how to do things, is to have that little challenge. It doesn't have to be a big one, you know, you can learn in small steps. I don't know where the saying comes from, but I remember a saying that is, the person that knows everything has nothing new to learn. And that sounds really boring to me. Okay, that's not perfect. Don't expect it to be, because I'm not a perfect carver. But it is smooth enough for me to be happy with it. At least at the moment. It would be nice to be a bit smoother, but if all else fails, I'll get the sandpaper out and sand it if I need to do so afterwards. But once we've carved the dragon down a bit, it'll be more accessible. Just Jessup, welcome back this evening. I'm following, it's okay. Not quite sure I understand what you mean there, Deck the Best. I know it is. Would I like to do any pyrography on that? It was something that the Brilliant Bacon, I think it was, suggested earlier on, and that's an interesting idea. I don't know. You know, as I did the painting on the rose that was carved earlier, so I don't particularly see any reason why I shouldn't do any pyrography on it, but it hasn't been something up until now that I'd even thought about. So it's a definite possibility. Or as they say, it's a definite maybe. Okay, I need to move the clamp to get in there to do this. I've got all that area around there to do, but I think we've probably done enough for this evening's stream, I'm afraid to say, guys and gals. It's now coming up to 10:30 in the UK. I've been live now for about 2¼ hours, and it's as I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit warm here in the studio, and I could do with a drink, and it's getting towards bedtime, and I've got to clear all this stuff up as well, and the stuff that's all over the floor. Sawdust never goes where you want it to do. That does still slope up a bit, but we'll leave it for now. Yes, it possibly would, and shadows on the body, for example, because even though it's a white dragon, the shadows formed by the body and by the arms and what have you. So yeah, we possibly will. I haven't decided. We'll see when it's carved, and we'll make the decision at that point. But yes, as I was saying, it's coming up to bedtime, I'm afraid, for me. So I will stop the stream shortly. I do want to say thank you to all the people that followed this evening, and all of those that are already following. It is absolutely fantastic to have you here, and for you to want to come back to see more of this. I will be doing some more carving tomorrow night. That will be around about 2½ hours ago, in whatever time zone you're in. If you're familiar with British summertime, that's 8 PM British summertime, 1900 GMT. And if you're not following, would like to do so, of course, please push the follow button. Twitch then should, in theory, notify you when I go live, or sometime within 2 hours after that. But you can also follow me on Twitter if you would like to do so. It's Zaragan Art, and again, the details are below the stream window. And of course, there is a tweet goes out when I go live, and generally speaking, those are delivered certainly a lot more reliably than the Twitter. Twitch stuff is. I shall get my words in order one of these days. But apart from that, again, I just want to say thank you all. I'm putting my tools away. Always a good idea. Keeps your tools sharp, and sharp tools are your friends. So keep them safe at all times. That's safe both for the tools and for yourself, because you don't want to be running your hands around where there are sharp tools. So I'm going to put mine away as well. Keep them safe. Again, thank you all. I may well stream tomorrow afternoon. If I do that, however, tomorrow afternoon stream won't be carving. It will be Punchcraft, in case you're wondering what that is. G Smiley, thank you very much for following. That's absolutely fantastic of you. Thank you. And Warrior Nothing appears to have followed. I'm not sure if I've missed you. It hasn't popped up yet. It hadn't popped up yet. So thank you also for following. Again, that's fantastic of you all. If you're not familiar with Punchcraft, this is Punchcraft. I'll try and get it in. I've got this piece to finish. The grass certainly wants more work done, like. So if I do stream tomorrow afternoon, this will be what I'm doing, and then tomorrow evening we'll be back to the carving and working on these areas around the other side to smooth them off as well. So, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, as all of you that are here kind of don't really want to go, but it is getting a bit late. Thank you all, and I hope you have a good evening, good day, good afternoon, whatever it is appropriate for your own time zone. Thank you.